Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. The night was cold, the kind of cold that made the street lamps look tired, their light falling weakly over the empty road. A small bus stop stood quietly under the dim glow. The glass walls were scratched, the metal bench was cold, and the silence was broken only by the faint hum of cars far away. It was here that Emily sat, hugging her thin jacket tightly around her. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but her heart carried something heavier than the cold. She had been crying earlier. Her cheeks still felt stiff from the dried tears. In her bag, tucked carefully, was a letter. It was a letter of rejection from the job she had hoped would change everything. She had worked hard, prayed hard, and dreamed even harder. But the letter was short and cold, just like the night. "We regret to inform you." Those words had cut her more than she wanted to admit. Now she was waiting for a bus she was not even sure would come. A bus that could take her anywhere, yet she felt like she had nowhere to go. As she sat in silence, a figure appeared from the end of the street. He walked slowly, his steps calm, his shoulders slightly bent, as if the world had taught him the value of humility. His hair was a little messy, his clothes simple, nothing flashy, but there was something about his presence that made the cold air feel less sharp. He came closer, and Emily realized who it was. Her breath caught in her throat. It was Keanu Reeves. She blinked, not trusting her eyes at first. Keanu Reeves, the actor known all over the world, the man who had been in so many stories people admired. And yet here he was, walking down a quiet street like he belonged in no other place but this one. No cameras, no fans, no noise. Just him in the stillness of the night. Keanu stepped into the bus stop, gave her a gentle nod, and sat down at the far end of the bench. His movements were quiet, respectful, almost as if he wanted to make sure he did not disturb her sadness. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that asked questions without words. Finally, Keanu looked at her. His eyes were soft, carrying both kindness and a quiet pain that felt strangely familiar. "Long night?" he asked, his voice gentle, almost like a whisper that respected her space. Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around the straps of her bag. "Something like that," she said quietly. Her voice was tired, almost breaking. She wanted to hold back, but something about his tone made her feel safe. She looked at him again, and for the first time in days, she felt like someone truly saw her. Keanu nodded, not pressing her for more. He simply leaned back, his eyes looking out at the empty street as if he understood what it meant to wait for something uncertain. After a long pause, he spoke again. "You know," he said, "sometimes the hardest nights are the ones that prepare us for mornings we don't expect." His words hit her like a soft wave. They were simple, but they carried weight. Emily felt her throat tighten. She wanted to ask him why he was even here, why a man like him was sitting at a bus stop in the middle of the night. But instead, she found herself asking something else. "How do you keep going?" she whispered, "when everything feels like it's falling apart?" Keanu turned to her, and his gaze was steady, honest. "Because falling apart is not the end," he said. "It's just the moment before you build again. Every time I thought I had lost everything, life gave me something small to hold on to. And that small thing kept me moving." Emily felt tears rise again, but this time they were not from despair. They were from the strange comfort in his words. He spoke not like a celebrity, not like someone above her, but like a human being who had walked through storms of his own. The bus stop remained quiet, the night still cold, but something had changed in her heart. She could feel it. It was as if hope, faint and fragile, was breathing again. Then Keanu reached into his pocket. His hand moved slowly, as if he was pulling out something more than just an object. He looked at her, his face calm but serious, and then he placed it on the bench between them. "This helped me once," he said softly. "Maybe it can help you now." Emily looked down. Her eyes widened. Her breath stopped for a moment. What he gave her was simple, yet it carried a story she did not yet know. A story that would change everything. Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. Emily stared at the object lying on the cold bench between them. It was small, worn at the edges but carefully kept. A folded piece of paper, old yet firm, held together by a thin black ribbon. It looked simple, but there was something about it that felt heavy, almost sacred. She hesitated to touch it, as if it carried more than she was ready for. Keanu's eyes stayed on her, not demanding, not pushing, just waiting. "Go ahead," he said quietly. "It's yours now." Her fingers shook as she reached out. When she touched it, she felt warmth, though the night was cold. She unfolded it carefully. Inside was not money, not a ticket, not something ordinary. It was a handwritten note. The ink had faded with time, but the words were still clear. They read, "Even in the darkest night, there will always be one light that refuses to go out. Find it, and you will find yourself." Her throat tightened as she read. The words were simple, yet they pierced her heart. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but all she managed was a whisper. "What is this?" Keanu leaned back, his gaze fixed on the empty road stretching in front of them. "Someone gave that to me," he said. "A long time ago, when I thought I had lost everything. I carried it for years. Every time I wanted to give up, I opened it, and it reminded me that pain does not last forever." His voice was calm, but Emily heard something deeper. She could feel the weight of his past in those words. He was not telling a story for sympathy. He was sharing a truth that had been carved into him by life itself. She wanted to ask who gave it to him, but something in his expression told her it was a memory too sacred to disturb. Silence fell again, but it was not empty. It was filled with meaning, with the quiet connection of two strangers bound by invisible threads of pain and resilience. The sound of an approaching bus engine broke the stillness. Its headlights grew brighter as it neared the stop, the hiss of its brakes cutting through the cold night. Emily clutched the note tightly. The bus doors opened with a creak, and warm air spilled out. The driver looked at them impatiently, waiting for passengers. Emily looked at Keanu, unsure. "Are you getting on?" she asked softly. Keanu shook his head. "Not this one," he said. "My road is different tonight." There was no explanation, no detail, just a simple answer that somehow felt complete. Emily stepped toward the bus, her bag heavy on her shoulder. But her feet stopped at the door. She turned back, her eyes finding his. "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why give this to me? You don't even know me." Keanu's eyes softened, his lips curving into the faintest smile. "Because sometimes the right words don't belong to us anymore," he said. "They belong to the next person who needs them. And tonight, that person is you." Emily felt her chest tighten. She wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small for what she was feeling. The driver honked lightly, impatient. She climbed into the bus, her legs heavy, her heart racing. She found a seat by the window and looked out. Keanu was still there, sitting quietly on the bench, his hands resting calmly on his lap. He looked almost like a guardian, watching over the night. The bus pulled away, and soon he disappeared into the blur of distance. But the note was still in her hands, warm against her skin, as if it carried a part of him with it. She unfolded it again, reading the words over and over. They were etched into her now, deep and unshakable. As the city lights passed by outside the window, Emily felt something she had not felt in a long time. Not certainty, not joy, but a flicker of hope. She did not know where the bus was truly taking her. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But she knew one thing. Her story had just shifted. Her life, which had felt broken only hours ago, now had a new thread running through it. And it had begun at a bus stop, with a stranger who saw her when no one else did. Yet Emily could not shake the thought. Why was he there? Why at that moment? Was it fate, or something more? The questions followed her like shadows, whispering that this night was only the beginning of something far greater. Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. The bus rattled through the dark streets, its windows fogging from the mix of cold air outside and the faint warmth inside. Emily sat pressed against the glass, clutching the folded note tightly in her hand. Her eyes moved across the glowing words again and again, as if reading them could somehow carve them into her soul. Even in the darkest night, there will always be one light that refuses to go out. Find it, and you will find yourself. She whispered the words softly under her breath, afraid that if she stopped repeating them, they might lose their power. Something about them felt alive, as if they were meant for her alone. The bus was nearly empty. An old woman sat 2 rows ahead, asleep with her head against the window. A young man scrolled endlessly through his phone, the blue glow on his face making him look almost ghostly. Apart from them, Emily was alone. And yet, in her chest, she carried the weight of what Keanu had given her. Her mind wandered back to the bench, to his calm eyes, his soft voice, the way he said, "My road is different tonight." She wanted to believe she would see him again, but a quiet fear told her she never would. He had entered her life like a breath of air and left just as quickly, leaving her with nothing but this note and questions she could not answer. When the bus reached her stop, Emily stepped off into the quiet street. The lamps flickered here too, but instead of feeling heavy, she felt strangely steady. She walked the narrow road toward her small apartment, the note still in her hand. The city around her looked the same, but she was not the same. Inside her apartment, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the note under the dim light of her lamp. She thought of the rejection letter in her bag. For the first time, it didn't sting as deeply. Maybe, she thought, maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe there was still a light somewhere she hadn't seen. But even as that thought grew, another voice crept in. What if this was just a passing moment? What if tomorrow, when the weight of the world returned, she forgot all about this? Her chest tightened. She didn't want to lose what she had felt at the bus stop. So she made a choice. She pulled out her old notebook, the one she had not written in for months, and copied the words from Keanu's note onto the first page. Her hand trembled, but the ink felt solid on the paper. She underlined the sentence twice, whispering to herself, "This will be my start." Days passed. The world outside did not change. People hurried to work, bills piled on her desk, the cold mornings pressed against her skin. But something inside Emily shifted. Whenever despair threatened to pull her down, she would open the notebook and read the words. Sometimes she whispered them. Sometimes she shouted them when no one could hear. And every time they brought her back to her feet. Then one evening, after a long and draining day of searching for jobs, she stopped at a small cafe to rest. She sat in the corner with her tea, her notebook open. Her eyes were tired, but her heart was steady. She was reading the words again when she felt someone sit at the table across from her. She looked up, startled. It was a stranger, a woman, perhaps in her late 30s, with sharp yet kind eyes. Her clothes were worn, and her hands were rough as though they had carried heavy burdens. The woman glanced at the notebook and smiled faintly. "Those are strong words," she said softly. "Where did you get them?" Emily hesitated. Should she tell her? Should she reveal that Keanu Reeves himself had given her this note at a bus stop? The story sounded unbelievable, almost like a dream. but something about the woman's eyes, tired, searching, made her speak. "Someone gave them to me," Emily said quietly, "on a night when I thought everything was over." The woman leaned back, her face unreadable. "And you believed them?" she asked. Emily swallowed. "I wanted to. And then I did." The woman nodded slowly, as if testing the words against her own heart. Then she whispered something Emily did not expect. "I once had a note like that, too." Emily's eyes widened. You did?" The woman nodded again. "Years ago. A stranger gave it to me when I was at my lowest. It wasn't the same words, but it carried the same meaning. And I've kept it ever since." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded scrap of paper, creased and fragile with age. She placed it on the table, sliding it toward Emily. Emily opened it with care. Inside were 6 words written in uneven handwriting. "You are not broken. Keep walking." Her breath caught. Her heart raced. This was no coincidence. This was a thread. She looked up at the woman, her voice trembling. "Who gave this to you?" The woman smiled faintly, her eyes far away, as if remembering something too vast to explain. "Someone who understood pain," she said. "Someone who knew the weight of silence." Emily's hands shook. She felt as though the ground beneath her was shifting, as if the note Keanu had given her was part of something far bigger than she had realized. For the first time, she wondered if what happened at the bus stop was not chance at all. Maybe Keanu hadn't just been a kind stranger in the night. Maybe he was part of a hidden chain of kindness passed from hand to hand, carrying light into the darkest places. And now, for reasons she could not yet understand, she had become part of it too. Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. Emily walked home from the cafe with her heart racing. The woman's words echoed in her mind, and the 2 notes, hers and the stranger's, felt heavy in her pocket. She could not stop thinking about it. Was this a coincidence, or something greater? The cold wind pushed against her as she walked, but she hardly noticed. Her thoughts were louder than the city around her. She remembered Keanu's calm eyes, the way he had placed the note on the bench, and how he said, "Because sometimes the right words don't belong to us anymore. They belong to the next person who needs them." What if he had been part of this all along? What if these notes had been passed through many hands, carrying light into lives that were breaking? The thought both comforted and frightened her. Comfort, because it meant she was not alone. Fear, because it meant she now had a responsibility. In her small apartment that night, she placed both notes side by side on her desk. The words stared back at her. "Even in the darkest night, there will always be one light that refuses to go out. Find it, and you will find yourself. You are not broken. Keep walking." Emily whispered to herself, "Maybe it's my turn now." But the next morning, her doubts returned. Who was she to carry anything forward? She was still jobless, still unsure of her path, still fighting to believe in herself. She felt weak, unprepared. She thought of Keanu again. His strength had seemed effortless, his kindness so natural. She was nothing like that. As the days went on, she carried the notes with her wherever she went. She would open them on the bus, in the park, in cafes. Each time she read them, they steadied her. But she kept asking herself the same question. How do I know who needs them next? Her answer came one evening. She was on a crowded bus, tired from a long day of searching for jobs. The air inside was heavy, people pressed close together. She noticed a boy sitting across from her, no older than 17. His shoulders were hunched, his head low, his hands clenched around a crumpled piece of paper. His lips moved silently, as if he was whispering something to himself. Curiosity made her look closer. The paper in his hands was a school exam, covered in red marks. His grade was written at the top in bold, 32%. His eyes glistened, and he quickly wiped his cheek when he thought no one was watching. Emily's chest tightened. She saw herself in him, the despair, the quiet shame, the weight of failure. She wanted to look away, but something in her heart stopped her. She reached into her pocket, feeling the folded notes. Her fingers trembled. She thought of Keanu's words. They belong to the next person who needs them. Before she could change her mind, she stood up and sat down beside the boy. He looked at her nervously, trying to hide the exam. "It's hard, isn't it?" she said gently. He froze. "What?" "When you give your best," she whispered, "and it still feels like the world is telling you it's not enough." His eyes widened, as though she had spoken straight into his heart. He tried to answer, but no words came. Emily reached into her pocket, pulled out the second note, the one with the uneven handwriting, and placed it on his lap. "Read it," she said softly. The boy hesitated, then unfolded it. His lips moved as he read the 6 words. "You are not broken. Keep walking." Tears spilled down his cheeks. He pressed the paper to his chest and shook his head. Why would you give this to me?" Emily's throat tightened. She smiled faintly, remembering the bus stop, remembering the gift she had been given. "Because someone once gave me words when I needed them. And now, it's your turn." The boy stared at her, his eyes shining through tears. He clutched the note like it was life itself. For a moment, in the crowded bus filled with strangers, there was silence. A silence heavy with meaning. Emily looked out the window, her own eyes wet. She felt something shift inside her. For the first time, she understood. This was not about being perfect, or strong, or certain. It was about carrying light, even when you still felt broken yourself. When the bus stopped, the boy whispered, "Thank you." His voice cracked, but it was full of gratitude. He held the note tightly as he stepped off, disappearing into the night. Emily sat back, her heart trembling. She still carried her own note, the one Keanu had given her. But now one of the two was gone, passed forward. It felt right, and yet it scared her. Because now she knew. This was not chance. This was a path, and she had just taken her first step on it. Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. The night after Emily gave the boy the note, she lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought of his face, the way his tears had fallen as he held onto the paper. She thought of how the 6 words had lifted him, the same way the words from Keanu's note had lifted her. But along with that warmth came fear. What if she had made a mistake? What if the boy lost the note or forgot about it, or never truly believed in it? She turned on her side, pressing Keanu's note against her chest. The words glowed in her memory. "Even in the darkest night, there will always be one light that refuses to go out. Find it, and you will find yourself." She whispered them to herself over and over until her breathing slowed. The next morning, her routine felt different. The world was still heavy, bills on the counter, rejection emails in her inbox, but her heart carried something lighter. She had given a piece of hope away, and somehow, that made her feel stronger. As days turned into weeks, Emily began to notice people differently. It was as though her eyes had been sharpened. She noticed the tired cashier at the grocery store who forced a smile for every customer but blinked back tears when no one was looking. She noticed the old man who sat alone at the park every morning, staring at an empty space on the bench beside him. She noticed the girl in the library who scribbled poems in the margins of her textbooks, her face shadowed with quiet sadness. Each time, Emily felt the weight of the note in her pocket. She wanted to pass it forward, but fear always stopped her. What if she gave it too soon? What if she gave it to the wrong person? One evening, while walking home, she stopped at the same bus stop where it had all begun. She sat on the cold bench, looking at the empty street, and whispered, "What am I supposed to do?" The wind brushed past her, carrying silence. Then she looked down and gasped. Scratched faintly into the metal of the bench, hidden under years of marks, were the words, "You are not alone." Her hands trembled as she touched the letters. Had they always been there? Or was this another sign? She thought of Keanu again, his calm presence, his gentle words. And a strange thought came to her. What if he had been searching too? What if he, too, had once sat here, waiting for someone else to arrive? The thought gave her chills. Days later, Emily received a call that startled her. A cafe owner she had applied to weeks ago wanted to meet her. It wasn't her dream job, but it was something, a chance to begin again. On her first day at the cafe, she wore a simple black apron and tied her hair back. She carried Keanu's note in her pocket, like armor. As the hours passed, she smiled at customers, wiped tables, and tried to quiet the storm inside her. Then, in the late afternoon, the door opened, and her breath caught. He walked in. Keanu. He looked the same as that night. Humble clothes, quiet steps, his presence calm yet strong. He ordered nothing fancy, just a black coffee, and chose a seat in the corner. Emily's hands shook as she brought the cup to his table. She placed it down carefully, her voice unsteady. "Do you remember me?" Keanu looked at her. His eyes softened, and a faint smile touched his lips. "The bus stop," he said gently. Emily's heart raced. "Yes," she whispered. He nodded. "You still have the note?" She swallowed hard and pulled it out from her pocket. "I do," she said. "But I gave the other one away." Keanu leaned back, his eyes steady on hers. "Then you've understood," he said. "Understood what?" she asked, her voice trembling. He lifted the cup slowly, taking a sip before answering. "That the words were never meant to stay with us forever. They're bridges. We cross them, and then we let someone else cross." Tears stung Emily's eyes. She had felt this truth, but hearing it in his voice made it real. She leaned closer, her whisper breaking. Is this something you've done before? With others?" Keanu's gaze held hers, calm but heavy with meaning. "Many times," he said quietly. "And many more before me. I'm just a part of it, like you are now." Emily's breath caught. "But why me?" Keanu placed his cup down and looked at her with a kind of tenderness that was almost painful. "Because you were ready to carry it," he said. Her chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but something in his voice told her she wasn't meant to know everything yet. Then he reached into his jacket. He pulled out something small, folded, and placed it gently on the table. "This is for you," he said softly, "but only when the night feels too heavy again." Her hands shook as she reached for it. She wanted to open it immediately, but Keanu shook his head. "Not now," he whispered. "You'll know the moment when it's time." She stared at him, her heart pounding. But before she could speak again, another customer called for her, and when she returned moments later, Keanu was gone. All that remained was the folded paper on the table. Keanu Reeves gave her this at a bus stop. Emily sat at her small desk that night, the folded paper from Keanu lying in front of her. The edges were crisp, untouched. Her hands hovered over it again and again, but each time she pulled back. His words echoed in her memory. "Not now. You'll know the moment when it's time." So she waited. Days passed. She carried the paper everywhere, tucked in her pocket, resting near her pillow at night, hidden carefully in her bag at work. She never opened it. Part of her feared what it might say, Part of her believed it held something too important to waste on the wrong moment. Life moved forward slowly. The cafe job grew steady. She learned the rhythm of cleaning tables, pouring coffee, and offering smiles to strangers. She spoke more to people now, not just with words, but with her heart. And sometimes, quietly, she shared the note Keanu had given her at the bus stop. She didn't give it away. She couldn't. But she copied the words into scraps of paper and passed them to those who looked like they were carrying too much. Each time she felt herself healing a little more. Then one evening the storm came. The cafe was closing when Emily received a call. Her younger sister had been in an accident. Nothing fatal, but serious enough to leave her shaken and in the hospital. Emily rushed across the city in the rain, her shoes soaked, her heart pounding. When she arrived, she found her sister pale, hooked to machines, her eyes filled with fear. Emily sat by her, holding her hand. Her sister whispered, "I'm scared. I don't know if I'll ever be the same." Tears blurred Emily's vision. She wanted to be strong, but inside she felt her old despair clawing back. She wanted to tell her sister everything would be fine, but the truth was, she didn't know. And in that moment of helplessness, she remembered the folded paper in her pocket. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. This was it. This was the moment. She opened it slowly, her breath caught in her throat. Inside were 5 words, handwritten in firm strokes. Be the light they need. The words hit her like a wave. Her tears fell freely now, but they were not just from fear. They were from understanding. It wasn't about her pain anymore. It wasn't about waiting for someone else to save her. It was about becoming the light for someone else. She squeezed her sister's hand and whispered through her tears, "You're not alone. I'm here, and we're going to walk through this together." Her sister's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded slowly. In that moment, Emily felt something shift deep inside her. She was no longer just a receiver of hope. She was its carrier. Weeks passed. Her sister recovered, slowly but steadily. Emily stood beside her every step of the way, repeating the words she had once needed for herself. And as her sister grew stronger, so did Emily. One quiet morning, Emily returned to the bus stop, the same bench where it had all begun. She sat down, the city alive around her, and thought of the journey, the rejection letter, the night she had nearly broken, Keanu's voice, the notes, the strangers she had met along the way. She pulled out her notebook. On the first page, she had once written Keanu's words, but now she added new ones. Be the light they need. As she closed the book, a young woman sat down beside her at the bus stop. Her eyes were red, her shoulders tense, her hands shaking. Emily recognized the look immediately. She reached into her notebook, tore out a page, and wrote down the words carefully. Folding it, she placed it on the bench between them just as Keanu once had. The young woman looked at it, confused, then at Emily. "What is this?" she asked softly. Emily smiled gently, her eyes warm. "Something that helped me once," she said. "Maybe it can help you now." The woman picked it up, unfolded it, and read the words. Her lips trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She clutched the paper tightly, as if it was the only thing holding her together. And Emily knew in that moment that the chain was alive. She looked at the street, her heart full, and whispered into the quiet air, "Thank you." She did not know if she would ever see Keanu again, but she didn't need to. He had given her more than a note. He had given her a path, and now it was hers to walk, and hers to pass on.